our next step on this project is going to be getting ready to mount these things. And unfortunately, it's not going to be particularly easy. So this support bar is going to go about like that. And therefore, I need a clearance hole, or several, in this rib that will connect to threaded holes in this guy. And the problem is, I don't have a lot of room here. So initially, as I was thinking my design through, I was like, well, I should have enough room to use an angled drill. And yeah, not really. So if this thing is at parallel to the floor of this, it's basically the center line of the drill would be right here. So I can either do an angled drill, or an angled hole rather, and just make it way too big, and then use a big washer to mount this, through screw into these guys on each side. Or we can do something a bit more creative. So here's the plan. I've got this 2 1/4 inch wide block of aluminum, and what we're gonna do is carve out a pocket for this guy to sit in. And this will basically act as a sled for me to drill some holes nice and straight and at a rate I want to into those guys. And then what we'll do is put some basically adjustment screws on either side of it, and then it'll be done and we'll be able to drill our holes. That's the plan anyway. Let's see what happens to the plan. See how we can get along here. This is probably a little slow, like everything manual, but okie dokie, it worked out all right. Pretty good sized pile of chips. And the tool did okay as far as not getting too galled with chips. The camera's having a difficult time with that surface, but anyway. Let's go ahead and give ourselves the best chance of success with our ultimate project here. And I'm just gonna put a couple of more holes in here for some set screws. One addition I was considering was the drafted walls of the underside of the table are obviously not, square to this surface. So how are we gonna take that out, or does it even matter? And it probably makes no difference whatsoever, but I remembered in my drawer that once upon a time I bought these little swivel feet from an estate sale. And they come in handy every once in a while when you're trying to hold something in the milling machine. You just, put a bolt in there or put a screw in there, and then it self-levels. It's just like a little mini machinist jack. And so I've got 4 of those, and there's my set screws. And just took some cheapo, hardware store grade, cheese grade fasteners, screws, and just hacksawed the head off. And if you don't have one of these, this is a really handy tool. This is called a thread file. This one is made by Jaw Manufacturing Company of Reading, Pennsylvania. And so it's got various different tooth pitches on it, and I've got 2 of these for different sizes. But after hacksawing, I like to just rotate this a little bit around on this guy, and it will straighten out that first lead-in thread that's kind of mushed over after cutting with the hacksaw. So just a couple of seconds with a very handy little thread file, and it's all good. Okay, so this guy's going to sit in like that, and then we'll just tighten these set screws, snug them rather. Does not need to be tight. All we're trying to do is keep this angle head attachment from twisting. So there we go. There's our little sled. That kind of funny. Looks like a car that I would have drawn when I was 4. That's basically how it's going to work. I had to take the jam nuts off of this side just because of the width is changing here. So being able to just kind of go back and forth in here, maybe that one's a little tighter than it needs to be. But basically, this will allow me to not have this whole thing go doink. And what we can also do is take them off entirely on one side and have it just right against, this edge is machined, so it's really easy on this one, but basically move over closer to the wall. Now, I don't need that many holes, so I'm not too worried about it. But anyway, there is adjustability here, and we can get the drill running nice and straight. So we don't bind it up and don't break the drill, and should work out pretty well. I'm mixing red and yellow on this little project. So this is a 10-coated 13/64 drill. This is basically as close as I could get for one of these maintenance style drills to number 10 clearance size, which I can't remember what that is at the moment. It's like 201 or something. A little bit wobbly, but I think once it gets in the hole, like that. Kind of goofy looking, but I think it's going to work. One more trip to the milling machine for this thing. I hope. Should be the last of it. Okay, the drill is about 1/16 of an inch away from the wall. And to set it off, I used just a 1, 2, 3 block to give me, one side that's parallel. I won't really be able to do that on other channels because none of them are machined like that one, but figured I'd start with the easiest one. And to line up so we don't have an angle on our little jig, assuming everything is nice and straight. Okay, more or less. Just bring our little pointer down on top of the hex of that right angle attachment. That's close enough. Okay, interesting. Very, very, very interesting. So what I'm going to try to do to prevent the deflection that it's kind of naturally got into it, there's a lot of slop in this mechanism, of course. It's not a precision tool, but I've got a stick of Teflon here, and my plan is to help it, at least once it engages the material, or up to engaging the material, it will stay kind of concentric. But anyway, we'll see what happens. I'm running pretty slow. And the nice thing here is I can use the mill table to feed in. Hey, it's working. Making chips. And I see the sled moving towards us. Oh. Ha. It worked. As ridiculous as it looks, it worked. I'm happy with that. So in order to get another hole in this segment, as I discussed earlier, what I want to do is go ahead and take one side of these little swivel pads off, and that will allow us to ride up against this. Oh, actually I'm going backwards, aren't I? So we'll do it on that side. Take off these, and it can ride against the machine surface over there. I like that. Seems to work pretty well, having that block up against the wall here. All right. We adjust on our little setup. Okay, let's see how we do again. Making chips. There we go. This thing might be toast by the time we're done, but as long as we get our results, I'm going to be happy. All right, this will be a little less good just because we don't have our machine surface to reference again, but I think what I'm going to do is find two little pieces of flat bar, because that's obviously a lot smoother surface for this to kind of try and slide against, and hopefully that is a better way to do it. Definitely builds up a little bit of tension, but I mean, once it's off, it seems to be okay. And let's keep on going. So remember, all these need to do is allow me to transfer a screw mark, or a punch mark rather, onto the support bars. And then once these are drilled and tapped, I'll just send a little screw through from this side, and that'll be enough to hold these in place. 4 screws on this one, 3 screws on this one. If I had all the room in the world and clearance wasn't an issue, I'd probably use bigger screws. But these number 10 screws are going to be way, way, way strong enough. There's very little load on these inserts that isn't also taken up by the rest of the table. So this is already totally overkill, but that interesting little project saved my bacon because I didn't know how else this was going to work without buying a very expensive aircraft drill. Pretty cool. Got the actual table inserts down in the bottom, and then these guys are pushed down against them. And then I've got clamps there so they don't wiggle while I transfer punch a couple of little marks. Okay, just to make sure I remember that, and that is when this table is flipped over, that is on the right. Perfect. Now I know where I need to drill and tap holes. So that was a fairly interesting little project. I hope you found it interesting as well. And what did we learn? So I think there's a couple of adjustments I could have made doing this basic arrangement that would have made things better. Principally would have been to use a corner rounding end mill to just make this a nice big rounded corner just to get into those radiuses better. That would have definitely helped out. And I think also having just a small piece of flat bar across, screwed onto the front of this would have helped keep this guy more 90 degrees without twisting against the drill chuck so much. But obviously it worked out. I think this is going to be perfectly suitable for the job that it has to do. These guys are not going into production. They only need to fit this saw table and nothing else ever. So I'm not too worried about them. All of these holes are kind of in random places, and that's totally okay. It really doesn't matter. Is there another way to do this? Absolutely. If I wanted to do this right, quote unquote, I would probably get like a Dotco or a Cleco. I think Cleco makes Dotco. Anyway, an aircraft 90-degree drill. So those have an extremely low profile on them. You can get into very tight spots with them. Even with a 45, the clearance below the drill is very, very minimal. And the other nice thing about those is they use a screw-on drill, and those guys are super, super stubby and extremely accurate. So you put a hole exactly where you want it. The reason I didn't is because I've never needed something like this before, and if I need it again in the future, I'll probably try and find a pneumatic Cleco 90-degree drill or something like that to make the next go-around easier. But for a true one-off, I'm totally happy with this solution. Kind of crazy, and a couple of hours of work putting together my little sled here just to punch a couple of holes, but the holes are, on size for the most part. I didn't feel really any slop on my 13/64 transfer punch. So I think the holes are in the right spots, and they're going to be just fine for what they need to do. And now the next step is to drill and tap these bars, and then drill through holes in these guys and drill and tap the table inserts. And then we'll be not done, but we'll be making some really good progress there. So this was a big step as well. So yeah, thanks for checking this out. I had a lot of fun doing this little project. It was only a few hours, but definitely entertaining for me. I hope you found it the same. You guys have a good one.